so much, and good evening. Good evening. Well, thank you. Listen, I grew up in a black church. I had to hear somebody say something to know I'm in the right place. And after listening to all of the individuals honored tonight, I know that I'm absolutely in the right place. And so congratulations to each and every person who was honored tonight. And thank you for the work that you continue to do to make San Diego, California, and our country a better place. Thank you. Congratulations. So, one of the things that I hope you understand, and that I hope you're really sitting with, yes, the venue may be different. We got a DJ this time, but I want you to understand that what we're doing, what you are doing by virtue of being here, this is really as American as it gets. This is actually what America has always been about. People getting together in bars and barns, in churches, in basements, deciding by our action or our inaction, deciding what we want our communities to be. And as I hope you understand, we have some folks who are in charge at certain levels of government that want to dismantle that American tradition. But I think I'm in the right room to say that in this country, we're not bowing to kings. In this country, we decide collectively what we want our communities to be, even in the face of folks who've forgotten those values and those basic fundamental American traditions. But what I hope you also understand, and I'm going to start by saying something at a Democratic event. I often get people saying, Malcolm, what the hell are you talking about? But I want you to hear me on this. I am not a Democrat because I hate Republicans. Hear me on this. I am not a Democrat because I hate Republicans. I'm not giving them that much damn credit. Politics and coming together, the negotiation, deciding what we want our communities to be. I am a Democrat because I've seen what this party at its best can do. And I know that when we build a strong, brave, bold, unapologetic Democratic Party, there are big things that we can do again. I want to be like crystal clear on this point. I've said it before, but when I got registered as a Democrat, the only thing I knew about Donald Trump was that he had a cameo in Home Alone 2, okay? That's all I knew about Donald Trump. But what I did know was my life. I grew up in a working poor family in the heart of North Philadelphia. If you know Temple University, first of all, you should have gone there, all of you. But more to the point, you know exactly where I'm from. I was raised in a neighborhood with two working class parents who tried everything they could to make life a little bit better for me and my siblings, and to have a level of confidence when they looked in my eyes and said, things are going to be a little bit better for you than it was for me. My dad was trained as a social worker. My mom was trained as a certified nursing aide and spent most of her career as a home health aide working with folks who had really significant physical limitations, mental health challenges. And I thought about watching my mama in particular get up every single day working overtime, double time, triple time, making sure the patients she served got their medication on time, only to come home and have to ration her insulin. I watched my parents, who I thought were fantastic, but who unfortunately did not, they didn't see that in each other. So my parents separated when I was pretty young. And what that meant for me, brass tacks, was I lived 5 or 6 different places by the time I graduated high school. I got my first job at 12 years old washing dishes at a little vegan soul food restaurant, if you can believe it. And if they had held on, let me just say this, as a business idea, if they had held on, this would be their moment, right? In the timeline. But what that job did was give my mama just a little bit of wiggle room. And some of you know exactly what I mean about needing wiggle room, about being in the grocery store and filling up your cart with great hopes and expectations, only to have that number go up and up and up and stuff starts coming out of the cart. Now, I tell you all of that to make this simple point that I didn't have everything I wanted to eat, but I had something to eat because Democrats fought for a program called SNAP. We did that. We made that a reality in this country. Listen, I buried both of those parents I mentioned by the time I was 27. I mentioned my mom not having access to her insulin that she needed. But you know what? A couple of years ago, we capped the cost of insulin at $35. Democrats did that. We made that a reality. We did that. And some of you might be aware of a program that ensured that I had health care, a little program called CHIP that Democrats made a reality in this country. Because no kid, no person anywhere should not be able to go to the doctor when they're sick. So now, I walk in here seeing all of you optimistic, inspired by the reality that you're engaging in this great American tradition, deciding what you want our communities to be because you know the truth of your life and you see the Democratic Party as a party that has made things happen. But Lord knows this is a party that has work to do. And Lord knows, unfortunately for each and every one of us, we have a country to save. And I don't know about you, but I refuse to let this be the part of the American story where we say democracy died on our watch. Not now, not in this moment. I don't know about you, but that's my commitment. And what gives me confidence about what we can do is being a little bit of a student of history. So some of you may be aware, I hope you were all aware, but if not, you get a pass because I'm about to tell you. Just a couple of days ago, Black History Month ended, and many of you may be aware, this is the 100th anniversary of Black History Month, began as Black History Week. And there are movements throughout this nation's history that have pulled us closer to making the ideas of freedom, fairness, and justice real. But the civil rights movement was spectacular in terms of its ability to ensure that those words meant something and pulling this nation kicking and screaming toward making those values a reality in people's lived experience. But 61 years ago, I find myself particularly inspired by what happened that day. So 61 years ago, many of you may know about the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and Bloody Sunday, as we call it. Many of you may be aware. But I also want to be crystal clear about what was actually happening in that moment, what was happening in that march that we now revere. Because here is the uncomfortable truth of that moment. You go back and look at the polling of civil rights in the moment before the march on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and it was not particularly good. Folks who were political analysts of the time would have probably looked at Steve Kornacki looking at the board and seeing that polling for civil rights was at only about 19% and saying, well, maybe Democrats ought to be leaving behind this civil rights stuff. Now, history does not repeat itself, but it rhymes, and so some of you may be familiar with certain political analysts saying that we ought to leave behind members of our community right now. That if we just turn our back on enough trans kids, then we'll build the political power we need to succeed. That if we just look the other way as our immigrant neighbors are being whisked away in unmarked vehicles by masked men, maybe we'll have a little bit of success. If we say nothing about this president bombing schools, killing kids in Iran, then maybe we can be okay. But I think in this moment, I'm in a room with people who understand that the only way forward, the only way to build real sustainable change is to not leave anybody behind. To not leave anybody behind. So you believe that, but let me go back to what was happening in 61 years ago. 19% of folks said that they supported the civil rights movement, what they were doing. About 35% of people said, well, I philosophically agree, but these folks are too loud and they're marching too much and they're demanding too much too soon. So maybe if they slow down a little bit, that would help us. And then you had a whole other segment of the population that disagreed completely with the aims of that march and of the civil rights movement. Now, I know it is not popular for folks to say, well, they voted for George Wallace. And in a couple of years, it won't be popular for folks to be walking around with that MAGA hat on. A lot of folks are going to try to pretend like they don't know who Donald Trump is in a couple of years. But there was a guy named George Wallace who was popularly elected, and the election was not rigged. He was elected and said at his inauguration, very famously, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And so you got 19% of the population saying I agree, a whole bunch of people saying they disagree, a governor who's saying what George Wallace was saying, a sheriff who said to the protesters in advance that if you dare show up on this bridge this day, you are going to be greeted with law enforcement who is decked out in military-grade equipment. You are going to be welcomed to that bridge with dogs that we are ready and willing to unleash on you. You are going to be greeted with fire hoses against peaceful protesters. And you know what? They had some batons that they were ready to wield as they did against the late, great John Lewis. Now, when we think about that moment, I think it is so easy for us to flatten history. Because if you want to tell a long story, you make it about a couple of central characters. So when we tell that story, people make it about the late, great John Lewis, and they quote his admonition to get into good trouble. But I want to remind you, friends, that even in the spite of the polling, even in the spite of a governor, even in the spite of a sheriff guaranteeing physical violence against peaceful protests, over 600 people showed up on that bridge that day. Lawyers, nurses, homemakers, teachers, faith leaders, folks who understood that by virtue of showing up that day in the face of all of that opposition, everything in their life was bound to change. There would be jobs that they would not be able to return to on Monday if folks saw their faces on TV. That people would have effigies burned on their front lawn if they dare showed up. Does any of this kind of sound familiar to what's going on right now? Yeah. So I hear people often suggesting that the problem the Democratic Party needs to solve in this moment is we need to find who's the next reincarnation of John Lewis, or insert historical figure that you know. So many people in this moment are saying that the problem that we need to solve as a Democratic Party is to find our own cult of personality to wrap ourselves in. But let me tell you something, my friends. In this moment, I think the Democratic Party and each and every one of us as Americans needs to spend less time asking who's going to be the next John Lewis, spend less time asking who's going to get the credit, spend less time worrying about how it's going to be reported, and just get on the damn bridge. I think this is a moment to get on the bridge because we believe there's something worth fighting for. The folks who marched on the bridge that day did not have supernatural powers. They had no way of knowing what the future was going to bring. But all they knew was that there was something worth fighting for. And let me tell you what I believe very simply that we ought to be fighting for as Democrats. And many of you are standing up. You better not pass out when I say some of what I'm going to say. But you know what? I believe in the greatest country to ever exist, that in America, you ought to be able to work one good family-sustaining job backed up by a union. One good job. That's what I believe. I believe that one good job ought to afford you the ability to buy a home in a neighborhood that's safe. That's what I believe. I believe that if you choose to have kids, you ought to be able to send them out of the front door of that home that you can afford in a neighborhood that's safe to a good, fully funded public school where you're not worried about them being shot in the classroom or shot on the way home. That's what I believe. I believe that those kids who are going to get that high quality public education ought to be put on a path to perfect a trade or go to a 2 or 4 year university or serve this nation in armed forces. And you know what? I happen to believe that after you raise those kids and they go out and do all the great things they're supposed to do, that you ought to be able to retire with dignity in the home that you raised them. That's what I believe. And if you or those kids happen to get sick, I believe that you ought to be able to go to a damn doctor and afford the prescription when you leave the appointment. That's what I believe. So this may be a little bit crazy when we see what's going on, but I actually believe that politics should not be a constant source of gastrointestinal discomfort. I believe that we can elect people that actually give a damn about making your life better. What an idea. And this is a little controversial, but I believe that we should be spending our tax dollars not bombing girls' schools, but building more schools. I believe that we need safe communities, and you don't build safe communities with mass people in unmarked cars. And I believe that all of our kids, not just the kids in the U.S., but all of our kids, ought to be able to grow up not knowing war and famine and poverty. I believe that. So the question is, how do we make that a reality? My mama would say, rest her soul, that if you're curious enough, you will learn something every day. Now yesterday, I'm going to end with this story. Yesterday, I'm in Oceanside, California, beautiful Oceanside, California. And I'm walking on your beautiful pier, okay, in Oceanside, and I look down and somebody had drawn out into the sand on the beach, and I have this picture, and I'm going to post this. So it's not something I'm like making up for this story. But it was like so beautiful. Somebody said, the answer is you. Somebody wrote out, the answer is you. And I'm thinking about that particularly in the context of the young people in this room, because we are told all this stuff about us being the future, but what I hope you understand is that we are the right damn now, and the answer to how we're going to make all those things a reality is you. Not somebody else, not some special person who's going to fly down, but you. And so I'm grateful that each and every one of you understand your power by virtue of being here and showing up. I'm grateful that you've chosen to get engaged in the most American of traditions. I am proud that you have joined a party that when we make it strong and bold can continue to deliver big things for real people. And I am confident that if we get on the damn bridge together, we will build a country that we can be proud of. So God bless you. Thank you for this opportunity. I love you, San Diego. Oh no, that's okay. because I don't drink enough water, so I will count this toward my goal, okay?
Thank
you so much. Look at you. You're on. I appreciate you. And
Thank you so much.
congrats.
Thank you so much. That was incredible.